Redditors who clean up crime scenes. What's the most bizarre thing you've witnessed? I've got a ton. I used to do CSI work and was an autopsy tech, so I would both go to the scene, investigate, bring the body back to the morgue, and help with the autopsy. Anyways, this person murdered their spouse and stuffed the body into a fridge and buried it in the woods. When you have a body exposed to the element, you have normal decomposition to look forward to, such as insects, bloating/gases, skin coming off, bones showing, etc. Once you've seen a few, then you know that this kind of decomp/state of body is normal, and you know what to expect. There are varying levels of stuff you deal with, but it's all within an expected spectrum of the job. Hope that makes sense. However, in this case, this person was sealed in, so you didn't have any of that. They were essentially stewing in there for almost a year, might have been longer. I don't remember the exact time. I wasn't there on scene when they found the person, only in the morgue to help with the autopsy. So I prep the room, doctor comes in, and I pull out the body from the fridge and wheel them into where we do the actual autopsy. Opened the bag, and oh my god, the smell. I'll never ever forget the smell. I've dealt with bodies in various stages of death and decomposition, but holy hell, this was on 10 other levels. Now the morgue has HVAC, air filter/fresheners, and all that, but they weren't effective at all for the smell. It was so bad I gagged, which I've never done before, and almost threw up in my mask. The doctor was struggling too. The doc double backed and almost looked like they were gonna faint. It was the purest, worst, most concentrated, extremely pungent ammonia smell you could think of. I had never smelled anything like that in my career at that point. If wine ages well, and is better with time, this ammonia smell did the exact opposite, and it was somewhere worse than anything you could think of. The smell stuck to us too, on our skin, for about a week. No matter how hard I scrubbed, I can still smell it, if I think about it. The texture of the body didn't help either. It was so slippery and wet that flecks of the ammonia fluid splashed onto my skin. The long gloves went up to my forearm, not all the way to my scrubs. It was the worst autopsy of my life. It took about 3 hours because we kept having to take breaks, and it was a difficult body to work on due to how fragile it was. It beat out everything else I saw, from the crazy accident fatalities, the interesting suicides, to even the person who had half their face eaten by rats and half their body covered in a sea of maggots and insects. OMG, I've smelt this. Guess it's story time. Years ago, some fellas working at an abattoir get a request to help unblock a tank. The tank is like a silo and holds blood from the cattle. Don't ask me, I have no idea what they do with it. Anyway, they open the top, and one guy climbs in. Once in, he falls from the ladder and into the vat. The next guy sees this, climbs in yelling to the boss that there is a problem. The second guy falls as well, and then boss gets up there and sees the guys in the tank and yep, he went in. Others had heard the yelling and saw the guys going in and all gathered at the tank. My dad was one of these guys. Most stood around the bottom of the tank, while others worked to open the bottom vent. They finally got it open. Old blood spewed everywhere and someone used some sort of hook thing to drag the guys out the bottom. They wheel unconscious and 2 weren't breathing. My dad stripped a guy and did CPR until help arrived. The ammonia smell that the blood produced was what knocked them out. The guys weren't trained for maintenance in that area. That same smell clung to my dad for 5 days. No matter what he did, it stuck, and he had to sleep in the spare room till it faded. He lost a heap of weight cause even with gloves on he couldn't stand the smell on his hands near his face. The third guy lived, but the 2 young fellas died. Confined spaces are super deadly, and they generally take 2 to 3 people before someone realizes the atmosphere is dangerous and decide to wait for help instead of charging in. My best friend used to have this job. Most of the bizarre stuff was cleaning up suicides. Found a guy's full intact mustache across the room when he blew his head off with a shotgun. One guy tried to kill himself by shooting his stomach with a small caliber pistol. He didn't die immediately, so he wrote tons of whacked out stuff on the walls with his blood, then finished the job. Found a guy's full intact mustache across the room when he blew his head off with a shotgun. Did your friend put the mustache on his face like a Mr. Potato Head and then talk in a funny accent to his co-crime scene cleaner? That's a sitcom I would watch. Like Brooklyn Nine-Nine, but way more fricked up. Ah, the mind of a Redditor truly is a mysterious wonderful thing. Just trying to do my part to get actual crime cleaners here, but I'm a medic so similar I guess. One time we found this guy dead in his home in the corner of the living room tucked around the couch, ass up no cloths on. Literal coffee ground looking shit spread everywhere across the house, on the floors, furniture, walls, everywhere, along with mass amounts of liquor bottles and glass everywhere. He had massive GI issues along with drinking himself to death. Don't know what was worse, the smell of the scene. Oh, I have a story about someone who launched their entrails over a bathroom that's probably 81 square feet. I clean up biohazard material, dead bodies, for my company on occasion, because I'm one of the only two that's certified. My coworker went into a house to clean a body, but the boss failed to mention they had been dead for 2 weeks. Okay, whatever, I can deal with that. We walked to the house, and not only could you smell it from the start of the driveway, but all the windows were black. Okay, this dude had blackout curtains, I understand that. We suited up and went into the house, which was relatively clean given the circumstances. We knew he died in the bathroom, so we made our way upstairs and followed the flies. So, you know how flies swarm decaying things? Yeah, it wasn't blackout curtains in the bathroom. The windows were caked in so many flies that sunlight couldn't come in. My boss also failed to mention he died in the bathtub. You hear about bloating and blah blah blah, but do you know what happens when a body sits in a bathtub for 2 weeks and soaks up all that water? It explodes. The entrails and remains of this soup was all over the taking, the walls, the door. It was everywhere. There was no water in the bathtub, just this sickly pink colored stew. That was the most disgusting cleanup I've done by far. I can't even imagine what it sounded like when that happened. Did you try to fumigate out the flies before you worked? No, we just opened the window and most of them flew out. And that is exactly why one should never ever consume anything a fly has landed on. In the best case, the fly just came from a pile of dog crap. In the worst case, it came out of that bathroom. I'll divulge that story at the next company BBQ. Okay, not a crime scene cleaner, but am a medic. Have a few bizarre ones. Came into a home to find a man who had attempted to commit suicide by putting a pistol under his jaw, but failed / had a second thought. He ended up having to crawl 5 feet away to where he had thrown the pistol after only blowing the left side of his face off to finish the job. The second one did the trick. Just about every surface in his living room had some remnant of the poor guy. He left behind 2 kids. Another time we had a husband who had caught his wife cheating and had turned on the garbage disposal and forced her arm down it. Massive hemorrhaging, but unfortunately she was DOA. Husband ended up with a self-inflicted shotgun wound. People really don't understand just how messy a shotgun can make things. Think the Hulk smashing a blood and brain-filled Pinata. And this one was more weird than anything, but here goes. Older gentleman we were called to after police performed a wellness check, late 70s. Nice house, nice foreign car in the driveway. Pictures of prayers and crosses all over the house. We head into the bedroom and there he is naked except for what I assume was one of those sexy nun Halloween costumes. Honestly I don't know, but he ended up having a heart attack mid-pleasure time while choking himself with a rosary. Definitely one of the weirdest things I ever saw during my time working the box. Garbage disposal story is brutal, Jesus Christ. I have actual nightmares of my hand going in a disposal. Feck. Edit. I looked up the horror scenes mentioned, and now I hate all of you. My dad used to clean up crime and trauma scenes about 10 years ago, and said he had to clean up a suicide one time, where he found bits of brain on top of a ceiling fan. He thought that was the worst of it, until they moved a TV stand, and found a nose behind it. Redditors who clean up crime scenes, how exactly do you go about getting into this line of work? Just hang out at murder scenes with a gallon of bleach. Someone will notice you eventually. Don't forget some copies of your resume. It's best to laminate them too. Thanks so much for watching. This was my first video of many to come. Please be sure to subscribe and like the video for a part 2.